I'm not someone that was, let's say, excited about the iPhone 17 Pro Max. I pretty much daily whatever Android flagship is around, like the S25 Ultra, the Z Fold 7, or the Pixel 10 Pro XL. However, the 17 Pro Max has the same price as last year's, the iPhone 16 Pro Max. It saw a ton of real worthwhile improvements, and I kind of hate to admit it, but Apple cooked. So I've been using the iPhone 17 Pro Max since launch last Friday, and I've been using it as my daily driver, and it's been about a week now, and I have a lot to say about this thing. I want to give you my raw, unfiltered opinion about the new iPhone, and tell you ultimately whether or not this thing is actually worth picking up. Before we go further though, a like and a sub to the channel is always appreciated. We're almost at 70,000 subscribers, which is insane. Thank you guys so much for the support on last week's video. It means the absolute world to me. And yeah, I seriously can't thank you guys enough. Now, anyways, a couple of things that Apple's changed off the bat. The iPhone 17 Pro Max is aluminum, which I can understand the anger considering last year's maybe felt a little more premium. And this phone is thicker and it's heavier, which might seem like a step back, but this is the best possible thing that Apple's could have done here, since the aluminum is much better at helping the phone expel all the heat generated by that new A19 Pro, which, by the way, at least for right now, this is the most powerful SoC that I've ever used in a phone. They've gone as far as adding a vapor chamber as well on the 17 Pro Max, and I really do feel like this is a massive leap ahead when it comes to thermals. Rather than one small area on the phone heating up and getting really hot, the entire phone gets warm, and it takes all of that heat away from the A19 Pro and allows it to run much better for longer. This is something that was immediately noticeable. Now, I've been enjoying this game called Destiny Rivals, and I usually play it on my M4 iPad Pro, but I was shocked at how well the iPhone actually handles it and maintains that 120 FPS target, all without feeling like this thing is going to explode. Now, in the hand, caseless, this thing feels really nice, albeit it is a little bit slippery. The aluminum feels much cooler to the touch than the titanium glass sandwich, which we've had before, and it also feels softer. Pretty much every single edge on this phone is rounded, which makes it kind of feel like you're holding onto a really dense pillow. And even though it is thicker and heavier, for some reason it just doesn't really feel like that. Whereas when Samsung dropped the S25 Ultra, I immediately said it felt thicker, even though it was thinner than the S24 Ultra, purely because the edges were now flat. The thing is, the iPhone has a good design. This is a very human feeling phone, and usually the Pro Max models can feel a little too large, but I have to say, I'm really enjoying this one. And for the sake of these videos, I've been using this phone caseless, which has been terrifying because I've heard a lot about this scratch gate that's going on. I have the silver model. I've heard the blue and orange are going to be a little bit worse for wear, but this so far has held up perfectly. I've thrown it in my pockets with my keys once on accident, and it's fine, but I'm also very careful with my devices. It's obviously going to be weaker than the titanium was on the 16 Pro Max, but I think the benefits that this gives are worth the trade-offs, especially since most people are going to be throwing a case on this thing anyway. Now, I won't lie, a lot of what is actually making me like the phone this year really does come down to iOS. I think Apple's added some really nice quality of life improvements, and it's made it feel a lot more personal. That's something that I felt like has been missing for years, and it's one of the main reasons I actually favor Android. But one of the biggest reasons I like iOS is for the app optimization. And now this is something that after using the phone for this last week, I've actually come to really appreciate. Honestly, I do a lot of work on my phone, and keeping up with my socials can be quite annoying on Android. Some apps still feel a little sluggish, like X, and I have crashes and issues with apps like Instagram and Reddit all the time. On the iPhone, I'm not gonna say that this just works. I didn't mean to turn that on. I'm not gonna say that it just works, because it doesn't. I've had a bug like twice now where Instagram just becomes unresponsive. However, it works better for what I do, and when using the camera inside of the apps, I'm not losing on any of the quality. Now, I also find that doing things like adding captions on my Instagram content is much quicker. I don't know if this is because the app just works better on the iPhone or the A19 Pro is just much better for AI, but the whole process from shooting to uploading on the phone has been night and day over the Pixel that I was using. I also use a MacBook and an iPad for my workflow, and I've just completely forgotten how nice it is to be able to have iMessage on my devices rather than needing to use the Google messaging website just to have like a duplicate of what I'm seeing on my phone. It's nice, and it's something that I appreciate because I don't want to like not be able to see what's going on when I need it, but I also don't want to be like consumed by my phone when I'm actually working at the computer. So it's nice to have. Speaking of software though, Apple's actually went ahead and added something on the 17 series that I've gone ahead and disabled right away, and that's PWM dimming. Now I'll link something below that can explain this better than how I can, but this is basically a common trait with OLEDs where the display actually flickers, and this can actually cause pretty bad headaches and migraines and actually could cause things like nausea. So using the toggle in the settings, I went ahead and disabled it, and it's nice to know that I have this option here. It makes it way more comfortable for me to stare at the phone for longer periods, and I just appreciate that they added the ability to turn this off. However, the display as a whole is insane. Outdoors, you can get up to 3000 nits of peak brightness, which is eye-searing, and going back to the whole aluminum thing, since it can actually dissipate the heat generated by this better, your screen should be brighter for longer before it actually dims. The bezels on the iPhone are also very small. Granted, there's this massive dynamic island, but unlike the Air, this hasn't been moved out of place, so it's only going to be as big of a headache as it ever was, and I really don't mind it anymore. That being said, it's not perfect. I do have 2 complaints about the screen. One of those is how the anti-reflective coating was marketed. Look, I'm super happy to see Apple bring an anti-reflective coating to the iPhone, and it does make a difference, but it's not enough of a difference to where I really think it does a good job at cutting down those reflections. Compared to the 16 Pro Max, it is better, but I still have a hard time getting some outdoor shots with this thing, unlike the S25 Ultra, which pretty much removed those reflections entirely. To be clear, this is way better, and I'm actually happy that Apple's added this. I just hope that this is something that they can improve next year and make it a little bit better. The other issue that I have with this display is, well, remember when I said it was eye-searingly bright? Yeah, it's actually too bright. As a light mode user, this thing is a pain to use at nighttime. However, Apple's added a reduce white point toggle, which I've added to my control center, and that has helped a lot. It's not something that I would use like 24/7, but I would use it if I'm laying in bed, and it really does make a big difference to how that light is impacting me. Though in literally every other category, this is one of the best displays that I've used on a phone, and I'm really happy with it. I also like what Apple's done here with the selfie camera. I talked about this in my last video, but now it's a square sensor, so you can shoot in portrait or landscape without needing to rotate the phone. This works for both videos and for photos, and it's a lot more natural for you to film yourself talking to your phone like this, where I'm actually able to look dead center rather than looking off to the side. But definitely my favorite feature when it comes to these cameras though is the ability to shoot in ProRes RAW. Now, I have the 512 gig model, which unfortunately is still not enough for this feature to actually take advantage of it. So essentially what you'll need is an SD card or an external SSD. But once you have that set up, you can actually film in OpenGate 4224 by 3024 resolution. OpenGate on iPhone? Are you kidding me? This means that I could shoot in an aspect ratio similar to 4:3 and crop into what I want. And Apple's Log 2 on the iPhone is insane. I'm gonna get flamed for this, but this is fact. This is hands down the best quality that you can shoot on a phone, and this is legitimately a pro level feature, and it's nuts that you can actually do this stuff. In a lot of cases, I think the iPhone is gonna replace the need for me to actually carry around a secondary camera, which is perfect because I don't want my bag to weigh 300 pounds when I'm going traveling. Now for photos though, I talked about this in my last video, so I won't go too deep, but you have 5 lenses to choose from before using the extra digital zoom up to 40 times. So you have a 0.5 ultra wide, which looks really nice, the 1x main camera, there's a 2x, which is a digital crop on the main lens, then you have a 4x telephoto, and then there's that 8x, which is a digital crop on the telephoto. All of these look really crisp. They're very punchy if you choose the right photographic style, and most importantly, they look really good straight out of the camera. All sensors on the rear are now 48 megapixels, so it doesn't matter what you shoot, you're gonna have the same quality across the board, which is really nice peace of mind. And although Apple still has the camera control button, which I'm not a huge fan of, I do like that I have one button available to me to open up the camera when I want to, which is nice. There's a few things that I've noticed with the 17 Pro Max though. So I use a wireless charger, and I found this phone not getting as hot while charging wirelessly, which sort of eases my brain a little bit, at least for any long-term use, since wireless charging is a little harsher on battery degradation. I've also found that the cellular 5G connection is much stronger this year, and now this likely has to do with the fact that like the entire phone is actually an antenna. You can see it underneath that camera plateau, which is nice. I don't know why Apple didn't use the new C1X modem that they used inside of the iPhone Air, far. I feel like that could have made this even better and way more efficient, but an improvement is an improvement, and it is really good. And the battery life is so much better on this phone. This has the largest battery that any iPhone has ever had, and even with the A19 Pro, it doesn't die on me. If I start my day at 100%, it doesn't matter how much I use it, I'm ending the day at 30 to 40%. Now, for me, and with the apps that I do use on my phone, I can comfortably get around 8 to 10 hours of screen on time on the 17 Pro Max. But I've seen some people boasting up to 13 hours. It is really just gonna vary on how hard you're pushing the device. However, if you're shooting in that ProRes RAW HQ, good luck, that thing will drain your battery. But that's besides the point. I don't think anyone's gonna have any issues with the battery life on this chunky boy. So yeah, I mean, I'm gonna use this for a little bit longer. A part of me doesn't really want to put it down yet, and I'm actually really enjoying this phone. I think it's really hard not to recommend this phone, especially if you're someone who's an iPhone user and you've used iPhone like your whole life and you're coming from maybe like a 13 or 14 Pro Max. This is a really big jump. To be honest, the benefits that I get out of this phone are worth it to me well over the 16 Pro Max, even if I was using that device. I understand not everyone's like a content creator, not everyone's using this thing to make videos and whatever. I think for the price, Apple has a really solid device. But yeah, as always, I'll have a 2-week review and so on with my findings as I'm actually daily driving this phone. So let me know in the comments down below if you have any questions. A like and a sub to the channel goes a really long way. Thank you guys so much for being here. And consider dropping a shark emoji if you've watched all the way through, and I'll see you all in the next one. Peace out.